It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me. Hey, I need you guys to do these things.
This whole show is a tangent.
Cool. That's why I dig it.
Shazam! It's Reality Check with Craig Price. I'm your host, the aforementioned Craig Price. This week on the podcast, we're trying something a bit different. You know, racing around to find quality guests is not easy. Believe me, if I wanted to, I could have bad guest after bad guest without an issue. There are tons of life coaches and wealth management folks banging on my inbox, desperately trying to get on the podcast. I try and bring you either true topic experts or at least unique folks to come on, and in this week, I wasn't able to find you one. This is the time of the year, the fall. I am very busy getting ready for a bunch of big conferences where I also get some guests. But this year, I'm doing a lot of what I call one-offs, and these are usually smaller conferences or just single company events where they don't have many other speakers, or in some cases, I'm it. There are no other speakers. Last week, I had the opportunity to record one of my longer sessions on my topic of getting a grip on negativity. It came out pretty good, but I wanted to highlight the opening piece that I do on what I call the Price personality scale. And I have it not only in my book, but I open almost all my negativity presentations with a condensed version. So what you will hear is a longer version of my personality scale piece that I developed to explain the differences in positive and negative personalities. You know, when I first started out giving my presentations, I did not have this personality scale in place. And so when people saw the word negativity in the program, they thought different things, and it took a little bit for their minds to switch gears. And so instead of taking that 5-10 minute piece and switching gears anyways where people would be confused and not really wondering what I'm talking about because I didn't lay it out properly, this personality scale puts things in the right order so people all of a sudden are gradually ramped up to get into the program. So once that's set up, the rest of the session usually tackles specific parts of negativity like looking for problems, failure, risk management, and dealing with complainers and saying no and things like that. But this is just the opening, and I thought I'd share it with you guys and see what you thought. And also, if you want to hear more from me, I was featured on Miles Miller's radio program, Miles of Success, which was on WHP 580 AM in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. That's right, all the way out there in Harrisburg. You can head over to WHP580.com and look for Miles of Success under podcasts. I am the September 13th episode, but I'll also link to it on the episode's show notes at realitycheckpodcast.com. And also, if you download the app, this episode's bonus material will be a small ebook that I created called 6 Tips for Managing the New Workforce. I put it together for another program I do on generational differences, and it is free to you for downloading the app. So let's go live to Austin, Texas, where I was presenting the Price Personality Scale. Think of the word negativity. What do you guys think about it? If you were there this morning, you know that I'm very open to people for feedback. So, bad attitude, naysayers, emotionally draining, or not to be, devil's advocate, burned out. All right, Debbie Downer. Oh, that's great. So it's only women that are negative. That's great. Debbie Downer. So it's not like a Dave Downer. It's whiner. All right. So I wanted to get those ideas out into the open because a lot of people think negativity is all these bad words and terms that you used. Whiner, horrible person, curmudgeon. The devil's advocate was the nicest thing someone said. And when I talk about negativity, I want you to keep it in mind as a tool, not as a personality style, not as someone trying to get out to get you. It is a tool that people use. It's a way that people see the world, and it's not good or bad, it's just the way it is. Because the myth is, all negative thinking is bad and has no value. With the exception of, what was your name, sir? Bob. With the exception of Bob, which should have been the easiest name in the world to remember. With the exception of Bob, most of you kind of had that. A lot of you were saying, oh, that negative thinking is bad, it's disruptive, it's draining. How many people believe that negative thinking has no value? Good, we're project management. I love you guys. That's because the reality is negative thinking is not fatalistic thinking. Fatalistic thinking is part of negative thinking. I will grant you that. But it is the extreme. It is the worst case scenario. And unfortunately, that's the one part everyone focuses on, is when they automatically go, any negative thinking that puts them in the worst case scenario. And there is a huge difference between personality, which is what you are and how you think and see the world, versus attitude, which is how you project that at any given moment. Personality does not change. If it does, it's usually because of some kind of brain chemistry. You may have a tumor. Usually personality change is the first sign that something's gone horribly wrong with someone. So personality doesn't change. It's developed very young in life. So if you are any parents here, you've already screwed up your kids. Don't worry about it. Those personality traits at 9 and 12 are probably still going to exist at 90 and 112. So personality doesn't change very much. Attitude changes from moment to moment. When you started this morning, when you came here, your attitude might have been, I know that someone came in with very low expectations. They said, I've been to these things before. Well, we'll see. And did his attitude change? At lunch, he was raving about how great time he was having, how great the presentations were, not just mine, but all of them. Actually, he didn't even go to my session, so it could have been better. But his attitude had changed just over the morning. Now, some of you may have had the exact opposite. Maybe someone got a phone call from the office at lunch, and that has changed your attitude in good or bad ways. So attitude often gets confused with personality. So if someone has a bad attitude, which can change, they often think, well, that person is just a negative person. We're going to throw them away. They are useless to us. So we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to set up what negative thinking is, what we normally think about it, and then we're going to talk about how we can actually use it, especially in project management. So I came up with a very unscientific scale to help us put this in perspective. Because positive thinking can be dangerous, especially in the extremes. I call it the delusional Pollyanna. Anybody here work for a delusional Pollyanna? It's like my boss is right there. Don't ask me these things. So delusional Pollyannas are people that, regardless of any evidence, of any situation going badly, they always believe everything is working great. This can be very difficult to work with, especially in a leadership position. And that's where you find most delusional Pollyannas and psychopaths in leadership positions, in the CEO position. And there's a reason why that exists, is that these are people who are the psychopaths, their own reason. But the delusional Pollyanna are people who get excited about what they're doing, they believe in what they're doing, and so all they want to do is project and ignore potential problems because that kind of disrupts their life. So delusional Pollyannas could sit there as their house burns down and they will go, you know what? This reminds me, I always wanted a fireplace. And now I have an excuse to do so. I call delusional Pollyannas very much like the old story of the lemmings, which is not true, but it's a very famous saying. What happens when the lead lemming goes off a cliff? All the other lemmings go off the cliff. And so delusional Pollyannas are usually the first one going, woohoo! Or woot, I guess is what we did in the first class. Woot! And all the other people go off the cliff in an organization. That can happen. I've seen it happen before, especially in small startups. The startup people are gung-ho, we're going to do all this, that, oh yeah! And then it all goes right into the toilet because the leader didn't want to admit there were problems. And it took a lot of people down. And usually a negative thinking person like me, I'm usually the last lemming that kind of looks over the cliff at the pile of other lemmings and go, well, doesn't look soft enough, I'll wait. Because if you're all going to go off the cliff, be the last one because you land on a pillow. So an example of a delusional Pollyanna is, holistic crystal worshipers, old pothead hippies. Now I have to make a difference. You used to just say pothead hippies. But now there's a big distinction, old pothead hippies, because there's a new type of pothead. Thanks to medicinal marijuana. You go to Colorado, you go to Washington, you go to several alleys here in Austin. These potheads are different because old pothead hippies, they really they smoked their pot for a cause. dude, we're saving the environment, let's go rally. And then they jump into the big Jimi Hendrix van here, the Volkswagen van. And so they want to save the environment. So they have a cause, they're super gung-ho about something, and then they drive off in this thing, and what do you usually see trailing behind a Volkswagen van from the 60s? What kind of smoke? Two types, depending on where you look. If you look at the windows, it's white smoke. If you look at the back end where the engine is, it's thick, black, acrid smoke, which is actually worse for the environment than anything they're trying to defeat. So here's a person who is diametrically opposed. They believe in something, but what they actually do isn't very helpful. And so the new potheads, they're all just wanting to get high. I visited a friend in California, and he's like, I got to go down to the dispensary and pick up my pot. I'm like, well, what do you need pot for? Oh, I got a medical condition. Now, I'm not saying he's the most athletic person I've ever met, but I'm like, so you don't seem ill. What's the problem? I have anxiety, man. Because that's 95% of the prescriptions are for anxiety or social disorders. It's like, so wait a minute. You seem like a nice guy. You're a little lazy, but that could be the pot. Why do you have all this anxiety? Because I got to get down to the dispensary, man. I don't have any pot. And thus a vicious cycle. And another place where you see the delusional Pollyannas is the self-help gurus. These are the ones that have a theme song, a catchphrase. They usually come out to music, dun, 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 and they make you do stuff, and you stand up, and you got to hug the people next to you, and shake hands, and talk, and all that crap. Exactly. But he was just evil. These people think they have the intent. The problem is that they have good intentions. I'm not going to say that self-help gurus are bad. I'm just saying that they don't have to deal with any of the repercussions of what they say because they get to go to the next event. So there are usually a lot of people going, oh, you hate your job? Hate your job. Do what you love. Do what you love and quit your job. Woohoo, you can do anything. And then off they go. Well, who's going to pay your mortgage payment? Not this guy. He's gone to the next town. So it's maybe good advice in the broad sense, but specifically it's just a lot of cotton candy. I call it unicorn farts and sunshine. So these are delusional because they don't have to deal with the consequences because for them there are no consequences. It's like that with a lot of CEOs. There are no consequences. We'll just start up another company. We'll just do something different. We're just going to go for it. Well, for us regular folks, we don't have that luxury sometimes, which is why it's the realist guide versus just the sunshine guide. The sunshine guide unicorn farts, my next book, I'm pretty sure. All right. Then we get to the prescription medicated. Now, these are not people who actually need prescriptions, which is important. I'm not saying that if you're on Lipitor, you're horribly positive and dangerous. These are people who act all sunshiny because they're trying to compensate for horrible things they're suppressing. This is why Utah has the second highest prescription rate for antidepressants. I used to live in Salt Lake City. Everybody there is very pleasant. In fact, they call it Pleasant Valley. Well, if everybody was on antidepressants, we'd all be happy. But I call it the Stepford Wives syndrome. If you remember the Stepford Wives, this is they did a remake of this for anybody in the first one. See, I'm always connecting everything. Basically, these are people who walk around like zombies going, hey, how are you? I go, hey, how are you? Oh, I'm great. Really? Why? What's going on? Oh, just great. Do you know why? No, just great. Well, for some people that's really good, but for me, if I don't understand why things are going well, then I can't really appreciate them because it's just weird, cosmic, no control. So obviously, if you're trying to suppress something by becoming overly positive, your brain knows when you're lying to yourself. I'm not saying you shouldn't be positive. I'm just saying if you try to be overly positive, insincerely, your brain knows this. They've done studies, and they know that if you try to fake yourself out, you'll end up getting physical results from that. You will start getting sick. You will start getting hypertension. You will start getting all these side effects because you are lying to yourself, like a Stepford wife, who ended up being robots. This is gonna come true. I'm telling you. We're only a couple. You guys here in Austin are working on it. I'm sure someone is working on a robot. And finally, the optimist. Now you're going to say, Craig, well, optimists. I hear optimists are good things. Not on this scale. Optimists are people that when things are going wrong and they see problems, this is the point, they see problems, they ignore them. which is different than the delusion of Pollyanna. They don't even recognize that there are problems. Optimists are people who see problems but only focus on the positive. And if you only focus on the positives, you're only seeing half the picture. Sometimes you're not even seeing that much of it. You can't be afraid to recognize issues. You can't be afraid to recognize problems. Optimists don't like to do that. Mortgage brokers, especially in 2007 and 2008, how many people got a mortgage at that time? And so the problem with mortgage brokers is they tell you all the great things about getting a mortgage, and then in the little tiny print are all the problems. They don't want to really tell you the problems because you wouldn't sign the paperwork. You know, they don't call it a balloon payment because you have a big party at the end. Woohoo! It's the last one. So mortgage brokers, they talk about all the great things about owning a home, which there are many, but they don't talk about the problems, and especially the situation where they were bundling these things and all the bad effects. Then they say, well, you want to own a home? You want to own $1 million McMansion? We can do that. Only make $40,000? We can still give you a mortgage. Where are my finance folks? Anybody in finance here? Nope, we're all government IT people. Leave us alone. Well, I'm not a finance person, but I know that if you make $42,000 a year, you can't afford $1 million home unless you bought it at minus 40. Your parents put a mortgage for you when they were 40 years old, and then you can hope, because it's going to take you 80-something years to pay that off at $40,000 a year. So it's not a good investment. Now, can you get an affordable home? Absolutely. You can get where a payment is only $1,000 or $1,200 a month for 30 years. But the mortgage brokers, especially in that time frame, didn't work that way because they wanted to get you on the dotted line and get you in the deal. And then when you file for bankruptcy, what do you see once you file for bankruptcy? This is where we really find out who's in charge of their finances. When you file for bankruptcy, what do you get a lot of mail from immediately afterwards? Credit cards. Not creditors, credit cards. People who know you are not good at paying off your debts will get you a credit card because they know that then they're going to put you in collection and they can make more money off of you. They don't make money off of people who pay their bills, which is why a lot of places don't even like cash. Can you believe not liking cash? I will take cash right now. If anybody wants to give me cash, I will take it. Credit card payments work better for them because in the long term, they get interest, they can charge you more, they make more money. Stockbrokers. Stockbrokers always like to talk about the trends, how it's going up, and especially with the IPOs, what the deal is. And the IPOs are really the one time now it seems like you can make the money. Because Facebook was, last year or 2 years ago? And they had a huge opening. And what happened about 3 weeks later? Said someone who invested. 60%. It dropped quite a bit because they were thinking, well, Facebook, everyone's in Facebook. Yeah, this is great. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And then they realized, oh, wait a second. Everybody's on Facebook. Where's the growth potential? Oh, it's gone. So they talk about the up and up and up, but they only, again, graze upon, just kind of glance at the potential problems. Again, you'll see that at the bottom of anything they always talk about, results not guaranteed, but they'll do that in real small letters. So the stockbroker, and we know the stock market goes through cycles. Now it seems like they cycle every other day, but if you were working in the late 80s, anybody get hit by the 87 downturn, the stock drop? Yeah. Well, my dad lost his job. That's when I realized, oh, wait a second. You can work hard and do well and still lose your job. Wait a second. That's weird. And then about every 20 to 30 years there was a correction. Some were worse than others. 1929 was a horrible correction. So we know that the stock market over a certain amount of time has to correct itself. Now it just seems like one day it's up 300, then it's down 300, and it's really like gambling, unless you really know what you're doing. Or you stick it out for the long haul, which a lot of people don't want to do anymore. Then you get to real estate agents. Now, does anybody here do real estate on the side or has a spouse who's a real estate agent? Because I don't want to condemn all of them. But I will condemn some of them. Because I have seen real estate agents work in some shifty ways, especially in the way they describe the units, the houses. You look in the ad and it's a luxurious B&B style. If you see a bed and breakfast style house, run. Or the word quaint. It's a quaint waterside. Well, here in Austin, you don't really have to worry about waterside, unfortunately, with the drought. But in Houston, waterside could mean a ditch. So it's a quaint fixer-upper, another word you got to worry about, quaint fixer-upper that's a waterside view. You get there, so they get you so and they're, oh, beautiful, and then you get there, and wait a second. This is not what you told me. But they didn't lie, because it is quaint. That's a subject term. Quaint means tiny. Fixer-upper means piece of crap. That's right. That's why you do home inspections no matter what. My wife watches those shows that on HGTV where they flip houses or they have people come and fix their houses, and every single one of them is somebody going, oh, no, we didn't get a house inspection when we bought the place, and then they run into these big, huge problems. It's like, are you stupid? You're going to invest that much money and not spend the extra couple $100 to get someone in to make sure that you're not wasting money? So real estate agents oversell. Good ones, there are plenty of good ones, and I don't want to, but there are people out there that will over-exaggerate and only focus on the good things. So then we get to the normal zone. And when I say normal, I don't mean this is the right way or the wrong way. I just mean this is where most people live. This normal zone is where 90% of the people are going to inhabit. You're not going to run into too many delusional Pollyannas. You're not going to run into the extreme fatalistic thinkers when I get to them. You're not going to run into the danger zone people very often. Normal zone, positive thinker. How many people here consider themselves a positive thinker? Some of you are waiting for me to define it first. They're like, wait a second, what's he going to do? No. Positive thinkers are great. That's why they're in the normal zone. You want positive thinkers. You'd like to be mostly positive thinkers. Positive thinkers look at the bright side, but are willing to accept the fact that there may be problems. But they're more likely to believe things will work themselves out, and yet they will take some steps to protect themselves. So a positive thinker is a great thing. A lot of people, I'm sure now that I've defined it, a lot more people raise their hand, oh yeah, I'm a positive thinker. So that could be you, so that was a large group. Anybody married to a positive thinker? Of course you are, Bob. Of course you are. You're gonna, yeah. Can we still get a hold of her, or is she living in another state? And friends. So, you're going to surround yourself with, most people like to try to surround themselves with positive folks or whatever. So I would say about, 50% of the people you meet are going to be thinking in a positive way. Then we get to the neutral. These are what I call the indifferent. This is where I can't stand. Have you ever seen someone go, well, haters are going to hate? Have you ever heard that expression? No. Haters aren't going to hate. Misery doesn't like company. Most people don't care, especially about what you're doing. So whenever anybody objects to what you're doing, it's not because they're hating. It's just either their opinion is being expressed and you don't like it, but most of the time they just don't care. They're just answering a question honestly and then moving on. They don't really care about the consequences of that answer because they don't invest enough. So most people are indifferent, but I don't want to talk about that. All right, then comes the negative thinker. Negative thinkers are, like myself, people who think that most things left unattended will probably go to hell in a handbasket. Left unattended. Does that mean I'm not going to do anything because I think it's all going to fail? No. That just means my brain tells me that things don't always work out just because I hope they do. I've experienced too much in the world that I know that if I leave things unattended, there may be problems, so I'm just a little bit more proactive. That could be draining, but for me, that's how I live, and it doesn't bother me because that's how I like to know how things are going. I don't micromanage, but I certainly don't just ignore things and hope they all work out. How many people think of themselves as a negative thinker? A couple of you. We'll get more of you because it's project management. It'll come out. Anybody married to a negative thinker? Are you still married to a negative thinker? Okay, just got to ask that question because if I jump in too early, then she goes, well, I divorced that idiot 20 years ago. So have you been married to this negative thinker for long? Since 1971. So that's 43 years, give or take. Wow, and you still are married? And you still love the guy? Yes. Oh, wow, good. Well, after 20 years, it's not really love, it's toleration. It's just too complicated to move, I put up with them, but no, you still love him.
That's his side. My side is it's going to turn out okay.
So you're a positive person, he's a negative person, and that is often, so I'm thinking, Bob, you seem like a negative kind of guy. All right. And how long have you been married to your wife? 15 years. Well, we'll stick with you because you know how to stay married. 15 years, that's pretty good. I had people go, I got married 3 years. It's like, you still have a receipt. You can return that. 3 years is nothing. So explain to me why Janet, such a lovely lady like yourself, Janet, would be married to such an awful, mean, curmudgeonly jerk.
He's not. He's hysterical. He's funny. But he thinks of himself as a realist,
Oh, really?
right?
That's coincidental.
Yeah.
We have not met before, and we did not talk about this. Yes, go ahead.
But it's that, everything is rotten to begin with. But you can make it better if you want to. He just chooses not to.
That's 43 years of marriage right there. It's like, hey, you don't have to keep telling me every 6 months I've got to do this. I will get to it when I get to it.
But it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
He can say, I'm not going to do it. Don't worry about it.
You'll fix it. Well, wow, you're a good wife. Because my wife will just leave it there and go, see what you're doing?
Doesn't mind.
I'm like, yeah, so wait a second, clothes don't go on the hamper, they go in the hamper? What is that? I had no idea. But a lot of positive thinkers are married to negative thinkers, and the reason I bring this up is because they are not these awful, curmudgeonly people who do not have friends, who do not have social skills. They just view the world slightly different, and apparently, what's your husband's name? Don did a hell of a job getting married and having a life. He won the lottery over there. So you can be a negative person and still be just as pleasant and nice as everybody else. It's just how you see situations, how you see the world. It's not, oh my God, I'm miserable. It's, hey, wait a second, there could be problems here. What is the issue? They just look at it from a different angle. And this can be extremely important when you're creating and implementing projects. Having one single vision when you go into a project can be devastating. It can work really well, but if you only have the blinders on, you won't be able to see all those other things that could cause your project to get derailed. And then your friends. And I find that a lot of negative folks end up being comedians and are very funny. So you said your husband's funny and hysterical. That's because they're not afraid to say the obvious. Does he have a filter? I have a little bit of a filter. I mean, I got my project management filter in today, but I'm in public. Yeah, but I'm not either. But I'm here with you guys today, and I even dressed up for you guys. Thank you. My wife picked out everything. But negative folks have a tendency of just saying whatever they feel like at the moment, and that's not a bad thing. It's just a lot of people don't have the reaction to it in a positive way. So then we're going to get into the danger zone. There are, obviously, and we've all experienced, the danger zone of negativity. We have seen some of the more destructive behavior. I call them pessimists. These are people that, regardless of the situation, they ignore the outcomes, the positive outcomes. Just like an optimist ignores the problems, a pessimist only ignores the good things and only dwells and focuses on the problems, which can be draining. When things are going well and yet you got one jerk kind of telling you about the possibility of an issue that you know may never happen, that can be draining because you have to deal with him. He's taking your attention away. But if he's actually talking about something that could actually happen, now that's a different story. So, life insurance agents. Anybody in life insurance or have a spouse in life insurance? Because life insurance is the one thing that I think we all need. It's the one perfect example of negativity in action. At some point, we are all going to die. Woot. That's not a woot time, no. We're all going to die. It's a fact of life. And as adults who have children or families, or it's just responsible, or if you own a company with, that you're responsible for employees, it is important that if something does happen to you bad and you do die, that they're taken care of. How many people here have multiple kids? Front row, because I don't want to really walk back. How many kids do you got, sir? 3. And so you love and care about those 3 little kids, don't you? Well, this is what life insurance agents do. They take a very good thing, like life insurance, and in the pitch, only focus on all the horrible things. So what would happen to those 3 lovely children? I have an idea that they're probably self-sufficient at this point. I'm getting that gray as well. So, but I'll be honest with you, I hope I have as much hair as you do, because if I looked at my brother, I've only got about 3 more months maybe, and it's all going to go away. I will be able to relate to you, Bruce. But you've got that handsome Lex Luthor thing going. So you've got that. You're working it. You're working it. You're working it. So what's going to happen to those 3 lovely children that are already self-sufficient? Do they have grandkids? Well, did they give you grandkids? And I don't mean like in a sacrificial, oh, this is for you, patriarch of the family. Yeah. They always talk about how are you going to take care of those poor, destitute kids and your wife if you die? And you think about it and you go, you're right, I don't want them to be homeless and living in the street. And so you get the life insurance. And I got life insurance recently, and my agent took it a bit too far, which is weird because I was already in. I mean, I approached him, I'm going to buy the stuff, you don't need to hard sell me. And he told me as I'm getting ready to sign the paperwork, he said, Craig, this policy is so good that if you die before I get to the office, you will be covered. And you know, how sick do I look that he's got to tell me that? I mean, look, I already look like a sick magician. I got that. I've got the jaundiced sick magician look. I got that. I understand that. People ask me, oh, you seem pale. No, that's just me. When I'm sick, I'm translucent. But that's going one step too far. Mechanics. And the reason I put mechanics in here is because when you find a good mechanic, you stick with them, right? Or her. You will go across town, even if you move. If they're within a reasonable driving distance, you will continue to go to the same mechanic time and time again. Why is that? You trust them because mechanics do have a bad reputation of ripping people off. Because they do that 92-point inspection every time you go in. You go in, I go, I just need 2 new tires in the back. That's all I need. Okay, and then they said it'll take 45 minutes or whatever. And so you go and you sit and you read the magazines, and then the one person kind of creeps towards you, and they've got a little clipboard, and they go, well, we did the 92-point inspection, and you need to get this, and this. Or as I call it, the upsell. Because they're looking for problems. And every single problem on this list, they describe to you like it'll cause your car to explode if you don't get it fixed. Yeah, you're going to need windshield wiper fluid, because if you do not get that, and you do live in Texas, and if you drive outside the city limits, we have, quite a large insect population. It can obscure your vision, drive you off the side of the road, and die. And so they'll hype it all up, and they do that so you will be scared, and you will go, oh, well, yeah, I'll get that. And sometimes it's hey, you need a new air filter, which you may actually need, but other times it is some weird stuff. So that's why when you get him a good mechanic, you stick with them. And Europeans. All right. Do I have any Europeans in the group today? Where are you from? The Netherlands. All right. Well, the reason I do this, and when I do groups, I love it. You're starting to get a Netherlands Texas accent. I can hear it. She's trying real hard to blend in. That's fantastic. But the reason I bring up Europeans, because when I do this in front of European audiences, in the optimist section I put Americans, because they think we are just goofy, sad, funny people. Oh, you're so sweet. You have no idea, naive. Because Europeans have been around for thousands of years. Americans have been around for 200 and some odd years. They have seen wars, plagues, pestilence. They have invaded and been invaded by every other country. They know that if they just let things alone, someone will come and cause problems. So then we get to the tinfoil hatters. These are people that when there are no problems, make them up. Most of the time they're playing the game what if. And that can be a good thing if you've done in small doses. But if they're constantly just playing the what if game, especially after things are going well, it can be really irritating. So these are people who make stuff up, like the internet conspiracy theorists. Bigfoot's real, and he lives in the woods, and he's an alien, and all this stuff. And then 9/11 was an inside job, which is crazy because how many people here work in the government? How many of you know anybody in your office that can keep a secret? Either they're evil geniuses or they're incompetent. They cannot be both. Then you got to worry about weird dudes with 3 names, which in Texas can be a little different because there's a lot of guys with 3 names. But we got, John Wilkes Booth, Lee Harvey Oswald, Billy Bob Thornton, Kathy Lee Gifford. These people, do not get between her and a bottle of wine. You will cause major problems. And then finally, we get to the worst ones, what I call the fatalistic depressives. Unfortunately, this is where any hint or whiff of negativity is pushed to. So if someone is in their office and they say something that may be in the pessimistic view or maybe just in the negative thinking view, people will go, oh, they don't agree with me. I'm going to marginalize and ignore them by labeling them the fatalistic depressive. You see this a lot in politics. And I'm not taking sides because they both do it. When you watch TV, they usually take 2 people who do not express the opinions of the majority of the people on that side, the fringe, and the extremes. They bring them on TV to fight. And one calls them, you're a liberal, dope-smoking tree hugger, or you're a gun-loving, right-wing Christian nut, which neither one is true. We are not red state, blue states. We are different shades of purple. And so this is exactly the way people are in life, is that there's really not, rarely do you find severe fatalistic depressive type people or all intent negative people who are out to get you. Often it's just people trying to express their opinion in a way to help you. It just may not be the way you want to receive that information. So serial killers and self-help gurus off stage. Well, thanks for listening to me. If you're interested in learning more about what I do and the programs I offer, email me at craig@speakercraigprice.com or go to my website, therealistguide.com. We'll see you next week, hopefully with an actual guest.